Aprilia has shocked the Motogp paddock with its crazy proposal, just as Jorge Martin makes his comeback in Qatar. Amidst the pressure and fierce competition, this reckless move feels like a life-or-death gamble. Is Aprilia a genius, or are they just looking for trouble? Let's discuss. The 2025 Motogp season enters a crucial phase as the Lusail International Circuit in Qatar prepares to welcome the return of world champion Jorge Martin. The Spanish rider, who made history with Ducati last season, will make his debut with Aprilia, although his condition is still overshadowed by a serious injury from which he has yet to fully recover. Martin has been out of action since suffering a serious crash on the first day of pre-season testing in Sepang, Malaysia. The incident left him with multiple fractures that forced him to miss the rest of the pre-season program. Before he could recover, Martin suffered another injury during practice for the Thailand Grand Prix, exacerbating his condition and forcing him to miss the first 3 rounds of the season. Now the defending champion arrives in Qatar with a burning spirit and a strong determination to get back on track. Despite his desire to return to competition, his first step towards racing will depend on the results of a final medical examination scheduled for Thursday at the circuit. This will determine whether he is truly ready to face the challenges of the season. The news of Martin's return was immediately highlighted in the latest MotoGP Crash podcast. Crash editor Peter McLaren welcomed the news, but did not deny the big doubts. "It's very exciting news that Jorge Martin is coming back," said McLaren. "It's a big deal for Aprilia. They've signed a big star, a world champion, and until now they haven't really been able to use him on track. Now is the time." However, he added that it will be interesting to see Martin's performance given the lack of time to adapt and the big changes to the Aprilia bike. The bike has improved a lot since the beginning of the year. Martin hasn't had much time on the bike. Even in Qatar, although he has a good track record, his condition is still a mystery. McLaren said Martin would probably just try to finish the race as a sort of warm-up, rather than be competitive from the start. Fitness is a big question mark. The crash in Thailand was not a minor injury. It was more than 10 fractures. If he comes here, he thinks he can make it to Sunday. But is that realistic? We don't know yet. In the same podcast discussion, a rather controversial, perhaps even extreme or crazy view emerged that Aprilia should be prepared to bench Jorge Martin even if the rider insists on going out on track. This opinion was expressed by Lewis Duncan, senior journalist at Crash.net, who stressed the importance of thinking long-term and not being tempted by the immediate desire to see Martin at his best. The situation must be treated like a 3-day test session. The approach cannot be immediate, it has to be gradual and calculated. Even just aiming for Q2 I don't think is realistic at this stage, said Duncan firmly. He added that if Martin feels uncomfortable, or if the pain from his injury is unbearable, then Aprilia must be brave enough to make a firm decision. They have to have the guts to say, "We're going to stop you. We can't risk losing you any longer." Duncan also warned of the long-term risks if Martin's old injury flares up again. Broken bones usually don't come back as strong as they were before. If it flared up during a race, it could be the end of his career. So the decision that Aprilia makes to race in Qatar is not only important, it could be one of the biggest gambles of the season. Meanwhile, Crash's social media manager Jordan Moreland sheds light on an often overlooked aspect of motorcycle racing, a rider's mental toughness. In Jorge Martin's comeback, Moreland sees psychological factors playing a crucial role, even more so than physical recovery. Pain can be endured or fought with adrenaline during a race, says Moreland. But the hardest part is the mental battle. The doubt, the fear of failure, the pressure of expectation, all of that is much harder than the physical wounds. And this is where Jorge Martin proves himself to be a true champion. We know that he has a steely mentality. He will not give up because of a momentary obstacle. Moreland added that the public often only sees the end result without understanding the struggle behind the scenes. What people see is the position on the podium or the speed on the track. But what they don't see is the mental training, the hard work in silence, and the inner battle that has to be fought every day. However, amidst the praise for Martin's mental strength, all parties in the team, both technicians, management and Martin himself, are aware that this process should not be forced. There is a strong consensus that Aprilia and Martin need to balance ambition with reality. They must be careful to set reasonable and realistic expectations. More than just chasing instant victory, the focus now is on adaptation. Readjusting the race rhythm, rereading the character of the bike, and building confidence step by step. This is an important foundation to build slowly but surely. Sometimes the best comeback is not coming back fast, but coming back right, Moreland concluded. Across the paddock, Marc Marquez is another highlight of the build-up to the Qatar Motogp. After missing out on a golden opportunity to win at the Circuit of the Americas, COTA, when he crashed out of contention with a big lead, some have begun to question Marquez's chances at Lusail, a track considered more suited to Francesco Bagnaia. However, the Crash MotoGP team have dismissed the narrative out of hand. "I don't think we should start doubting Marc Marquez because of one crash at COTA," said Duncan. "He was more than 2 seconds ahead before he crashed. It wasn't because of pressure, it was just a little mistake." Moreland even called the story ridiculous. "I don't understand why people think that Marquez can't compete in Qatar. This is not a new track for him. He knows very well how to conquer Lusail. He'll be fine." The facts on the ground support that statement. Marquez has won once in Qatar, with a total of 5 podiums, including iconic duels with Andrea Dovizioso. Bagnaia, meanwhile, has 1 win and 3 podiums at the same track. Ahead of the Qatar GP, the competition in the MotoGP standings is heating up. One of the most interesting was the performance of Alex Marquez, who surprisingly topped the MotoGP standings in the Premier class for the first time in his professional career. This was no coincidence. Alex has shown exceptional consistency since the start of the season. He finished second 3 times, in both the sprint race and the main race, proving that he was not just an addition to the front row, but a serious contender for the title. What made the story even more interesting was the presence of his older brother, Marc Marquez, right behind him. Marc was only 1 point behind Alex, although he had some bad luck at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, where he failed to finish. Marc's performance remained competitive and showed that he had not lost his edge as a former world champion. This sibling rivalry also created its own dynamic in the paddock, where not only the team and the bike were at stake, but also family pride. On the other hand, defending champion Francesco Bagnaia showed signs of revival after a less-than-expected start to the season. After stumbling in the first few rounds, Bagnaia finally showed his class by taking his first win of the season at the GP of America. The result has seen him inch closer to the top of the standings. He is now just 12 points behind Alex and has a real chance of defending the title he won last season. With the top 3 riders separated by a very small margin, the Qatar GP is expected to be a crucial battleground that can drastically change the championship map. A small mistake can have huge consequences in the battle for the top spot. MotoGP 2025 has provided some truly unexpected drama since the start of the season. MotoGP Qatar 2025 promises to be more than just a night race in an exotic desert. It is a turning point that has the potential to drastically change the direction of the season, for Jorge Martin, who is struggling to recover from injury and risking his title chances, for the Aprilia team, who must make immediate strategic decisions under pressure from the public and observers, and for Marc Marquez and Francesco Bagnaia, who continue to fuel the tension of their fierce rivalry. Will Martin be able to recover in time and survive until the weekend to save his season? Will Aprilia take a bold step and listen to crazy suggestions for the sake of the team's progress? And most importantly, can Marc Marquez silence the doubters, prove his class and return to winning ways? Write your opinion.